Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. I enjoy how easy the meals are to make and the variety to choose from, and of course, how amazing the meals taste. For less than $10 per person per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. You can choose from a variety of new recipes each week, like meatball pizza with fresh mozzarella cheese and charmed tomatoes, or let Blue Apron's culinary team surprise you. Recipes are not repeated within a year, so you're never going to get bored. Customize your recipes each week based on your preferences. Blue Apron has several delivery options, so you can choose what fits your needs, and there's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe and pre-portioned ingredients and can be prepared in about 40 minutes or less. Blue Apron's freshness guarantee promises that every ingredient in your delivery arrives ready to cook, or they'll make it right. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so do not wait. That's blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. Blue Apron, it's a better way to cook.
America, it's time for some straight talk. You love your phone. Look at you. You hardly put it down. But you don't love that expensive wireless plan, do you? So what if I told you can keep that phone network and number 2 for a lot less? Well, this is me telling you. It's time to switch to Straight Talk, guys. Bring your own phone and get unlimited plans starting at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are. Good morning. We are back in better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, a quarter of the way through the season, and one NFL unbeaten remains, barely. And don't let the score fool you. This one last night decided on 2 plays. First, a game-winning field goal, and then a spread-covering fumble return with no time left that provides one of the crazy backdoor covers of all time. We've got all that in the hopper today, and we have the big man, Booger McFarland, here to help us through all morning long. Hello, Booger.
What's going on, Green Man?
Well, what a ridiculous ending to that game last night. We were all just talking about it here with the crew. That fumble recovery on the flea flicker, right, one last desperation play, which has absolutely no chance to succeed and hasn't essentially since the band was on the field between Stanford and Cal, is the spread and the over in the game last night by half a point. That's one of the ridiculous bad beats that you will ever see in your life.
It's amazing. That's how you look at it. I look at it as a touchdown for Justin Houston. That's the way I look at it. As a defensive guy, I have a touchdown now. My name will be in the paper. You'll never be able to take that one away from me. And the common man says, you know what? I either won or lost a lot of money on that one.
Yeah, believe me. The only reason you say that is because you never bet on any of these games. For those of you who didn't see it, Harrison Butker, and that is actually his name, kicks what essentially is a game-winning field goal with 4 seconds left yesterday. And so Washington gets the ball down 3 on their own 25-yard line, and they throw that ridiculous little short pass, and they're lateraling it around. And the next thing you know, Justin Houston has it in his hands. And I've been there. I've been on both sides of this in my life. Again, I've said many times.
As far as the guy betting.
Yes,
because
exactly.
You've never been in the game.
Oh, no, I've most certainly never been Justin Houston holding the ball.
Make sure you phrase that properly, because somebody listening is like, Greeny play ball?
Listen,
no.
I haven't even been Harrison Butker, okay? I most certainly haven't been Justin Houston. But I have been the guy watching that thing on either side of it, right, with my face frozen either in abject horror or just unimaginable joy, as this guy goes running into the end zone for what is, on one level, a completely meaningless touchdown. Like, to you, a completely meaningless touchdown, beyond the fact that the kid gets to score.
Right.
He's not a kid, Justin Houston. That the guy gets to score a touchdown. But as far as the outcome of the game, it had already been decided.
Correct.
But again, that game, that play is the spread It's instead of 23-20, it goes to 29-20, and that is both the point spread and the over by half a point as the Chiefs remain unbeaten.
You got to love it. And here's the great thing about that play, Greeny. NFL teams only practice that play usually on Friday or Saturday, and usually it's in shorts. So that's a play that's practiced. I mean, it'll be kind of a fun play where guys mess around, offensive lineman gets to catch the football, but it's an actually scripted play.
Does it ever work in practice?
Yeah, if the defense allows it to.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
But other than that, it never works.
Doesn't want that to
it
work.
Never
it's
works.
Never going to work.
No, because
right?
it's not choreographed. You have offensive linemen that essentially have to catch the football, and most offensive linemen have no hands. So it never works. But you have to do it to say, what if? What if it really works just one time?
I get it. You don't take a knee and say, okay, this game is over. I understand you try something. I mean, it's tantamount to the same thing. But again, that is a ridiculous backdoor cover, bad beat, whatever the terminology of the day is. But I've been there. I've seen it. I remember there was a play I'll never forget where Jason Sehorn caught an onside kick in the air and took it back for a meaningless touchdown that turned a point spread. We've seen a lot of those kind of crazy last plays. Right. Scott Van Pelt does a great job with those on his Sports Center at night. And so that one last night is a perfect example.
There was one with the UCLA-Stanford game when the UCLA quarterback dropped the football and the Stanford defensive lineman ran it in. That was one of the all-timers until last night.
So there you have it last night. That's obviously not the headline, except that it is in so many different ways. And, of course, we've gone through a stretch of time here where so many things have happened in our world that have been so sad, and the horrifying events in Las Vegas of the other night that we spent, and Bugger, you referenced them here with us yesterday, and Mike and I talked about it a lot. And then there are the more commonplace sad news items with the death yesterday of Tom Petty, and we're going to play a ton of Tom Petty music on the show today. I loved that guy. I will tell you right now, you will be hard-pressed to find someone who had a more enjoyable catalog of big hit songs than Tom Petty. The kind of stuff that you're in the car and the song comes on, and I don't care who you are, where you are, what you're doing, what you're otherwise thinking about, you are singing along and you know every single word to the song.
Greeny, I grew up in Louisiana, and I'll be the first to admit I never knew who Tom Petty was. But growing up and starting to understand different genres of music, I'll never forget the first time I heard the song Free Fallin' Come On. And I was just mesmerized because I'm a beat guy. Yeah. Then I listened to the words. And when I heard the beat, then the words came in. Free Fallin' is one of my favorite songs of all time. And I would have loved to have heard him perform that live because to me, it's just an amazing song.
What year did he play the Super Bowl? He was really good at the Super Bowl. 2007, I'm being told. He was really good. If I remember correctly, that was the year that the Giants beat the unbeaten Patriots, right? Am I putting that together right? That was that Super Bowl? Yeah. He was phenomenal at the Super Bowl. Someone asked me before we came in here, did I ever see him in concert? And I didn't. That's the closest I ever came, was seeing him play halftime of the Super Bowl. Here's your song that you're talking about.
Love it.
And I don't mean to smile on what is a sad day. He is one of the great artists of recent memory. And the Traveling Wilburys, which was the super group that put together, which was Tom Petty and George Harrison and Roy Orbison and Bob Dylan, among others, was phenomenal. But right before we came on today, we were sitting and talking about Tom Petty, and Booger tried to sing Free Fallin', and let me tell you, it will ruin your day. At some point,
that's why I'm not going to do it. No,
I will give you some warning before we do it. It's one of those where, like, sometimes I'll say if you have kids in the car, you might want to listen to something else because we're going to get into something that might be disturbing or sexually explicit. We're going to have that with Booger later this morning. Booger's going to sing Free Fallin' for it's just 1 minute. Listen, you made me twerk on the air one time, and my kids still talk about it. So you're going to sing Free Fallin' at some point today if it's the last thing I do.
I'll give you a little tease.
But we will play Tom Petty music for you all morning long. Rest in peace, Tom, and thank you for the countless hours we have already spent and will continue to spend listening to all of your music. In the meantime, to the sports news of the day, and here we go. Baseball playoffs start tonight. We got the game for you on ESPN tonight. Is the Twins and the Yankees in the American League wildcard game, 8 Eastern on ESPN, and every pitch of the postseason, of course, is here on ESPN Radio. We're going to get into this in a couple of minutes. Do you like... Because you and I have talked about a lot of sports, and for those of you who have not had a chance to hear a lot of Booger with me over the months. Booger is not just a football guy, but knows everything about everything. Do you like the one-game playoff format for the wild card in baseball? Because I have a love-hate relationship with it.
I don't like it at all, Greeny, because, let's just take a look at this situation. The Yankees are 6 games better than the Twins, so I think the Yankees should get rewarded for having a better regular season. I would steal David Ross's idea. He and I had a long conversation about this. If there is a team that has a better record than the other, allow that team to only have to win 1 game. So in other words, in this situation, if the Yankees win tonight, series is over. If the Twins win tonight, play again, have the Twins win twice because they have a worse record than the Yankees. I do not like the 1-game playoff in the wild card.
Okay, that's insanity, but I have other ideas that we'll get into.
It's a good idea.
No, it's a good idea with the exception of its terribleness. But
it's not terrible.
We'll debate this a little bit later.
Wow. Are you kidding?
Off the top.
Elsewhere, the Raiders are going to be without Derek Carr a minimum of 2 weeks. The number I've seen attached to it is 2 to 6 weeks after he suffered a transverse process fracture in his back on Sunday. I'm not going to ask you to explain the fracture, but explain the impact on a Raider team that already is not off to the kind of start that a lot of us projected that they might be.
Well, first of all, this is not going to be season-ending. We've seen a couple people have this. I think Cam Newton and Tony Romo have had this. The Raiders have gotten some bad luck, and maybe for them, they can now just hold on and come back and reset. If you're Derek Carr, who hadn't gotten off to a good start, now, in my opinion, E.J. Manuel comes in. I hope he's better than the last time we saw him. He was terrible. They're going to have to lean on their offensive line, run the football a little bit more, be more physical. This is supposed to be one of the great offensive lines in football, along with the Cowboys. They haven't played that way so far. This will be an opportunity for them to take advantage of that.
Off the top.
Millions of fans of the Chicago Bears all across the country, including the one who lives in my house, can rejoice. Mitchell Trubisky will be the Bears starting quarterback when they return to the field, which will be next Monday night, actually, against Minnesota. Are they making the right decision here?
No, I don't think so, because if the young man was not ready, then why are you putting him in now just because of public sentiment, public pressure? I think the whole plan along was to play Mike Glennon. And to me, it bothers me when an organization has a plan and then because of what's going on in Houston, because of what other organizations do, because of public sentiment, you change your plan. If the plan was not to play Mitch Trubisky, then don't play him, because we've seen other quarterbacks play too soon and not be ready. Mike Glennon, you're paying him a lot of money. The Bears aren't going anywhere at all this year. Play Glennon, allow Trubisky to get a little bit more season. If you want to bring him in week 8 or week 9, that's fine. But right now, in my opinion, it's too soon.
Off the top.
And finally, the Chiefs beat Washington on Monday Night Football, and Kansas City remains the only unbeaten team in the NFL. We already described to you the crazy finish that was both the spread and the over on the last play of the game. Let's get into how the game itself was decided. That's Off the Top with Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance, with our compare rates for you, so you get the best deal even if it's not with Progressive, saving you time and money. Now that's Progressive. Call or click today. Booger McFarland, the Kansas City Chiefs are the only unbeaten team left in the NFL. Are they the best team in the NFL?
Well, right now you have to say that because of the multiplicity of ways they can beat you. They have a defensive front that can get after the quarterback. When you look at Ford, you look at Houston, what they can do. But more importantly, offensively, Andy Reid is the best play caller in professional football, not because of the plays that he comes up with, not because of when he calls them, but because he's morphing his offense to what he has. He has great young weapons. Tyreek Hill, prime example. He's not a running back. He's really not a great receiver. He's a weapon. So he figures out ways to get him the football. He understands that Alex Smith is never going to stand back there and throw it 50 times reading his progression. So he gets him on the move, uses his athleticism. And so when you couple all that together, last night they didn't play their best game, Greeny. Okay, Washington came out, and Washington clearly outplayed Kansas City early on, had them down 10-0. They didn't blink whatsoever. Kareem Hunt, to me, has been one of the bright young surprises so far this season. They can run the football. They have weapons on the outside. They have a defense, and right now they're playing better than anybody in the National Football League.
I'm going to set up hashtag Too Far Tuesday coming up for you in a minute, although I suppose just by mentioning it, I've already done it. It's a Tuesday, which means we'll be taking your tweets all morning long using the hashtag Too Far Tuesday. Anything that you sort of our version of Overreaction Monday, but we do it on Tuesday just so we can say that it seemed original. But I picked the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl this year, and they're starting to make me look better and better.
Which means they won't. If you pick them, they won't.
Yeah, I mean, my KOD generally will destroy people. And look, last year Denver and Minnesota both started 4-0, and neither one of them wound up in the playoffs. So this is a guarantee of nothing. But if you look at their division, which you could argue is the best division in football,
right?
The Broncos are they have a larger flaw, I believe, than the Chiefs do. The Chiefs are at times unspectacular offensively because of their quarterback. The Broncos are at times unspectacular offensively. You know how much I love Trevor Siemian, but you don't look at him, and we saw it in Buffalo as a guy. If you need him to throw the ball 45 times, right, you're probably not going to win that game. I think Denver's defense is better than Kansas City's defense. Mm-hmm. The Raiders now have lost their quarterback for, let's call it, a month if we're going to split the difference. So but you look around, Kansas City has banked a win on the road against New England. Mm-hmm. Look at how unspectacular a lot of what we think the other better teams are in the AFC. Houston, which is the best team to me in the South, is led by a rookie quarterback, albeit a spectacular one, but a rookie. Right now, Pittsburgh and Kansas City look like the two teams, and maybe Denver with that defense, and we'll see what Buffalo turns out to be. I'm feeling pretty good. My hashtag Too Far Tuesday is, I was right. Kansas City is going to wind up winning the AFC.
Well, I don't think that's too far, and when you compare the teams, Kansas City and Pittsburgh, I trust Kansas City's defense more than I trust Pittsburgh's defense. Now, the offense in Pittsburgh may be more explosive, but I think when you look at the totality of both teams, and I think the wild card, Greeny, that we're forgetting about is what's going on in New England.
Yeah.
They're playing really, really bad right now. They look like an average football team. They're losing to teams that we don't expect them to lose to. But I think in the end, we give Bill Belichick the benefit of the doubt and Tom Brady, who's the greatest quarterback of all time. They'll figure out a way to get it done, figure out a way to get it fixed. But when you look at Kansas City, I think Kansas City has something, Greeny, that once the weather changes in Arrowhead Stadium and it gets cold and it gets windy and it gets rainy, they can line up and run the football with this young man, Kareem Hunt. And they can run the football with their quarterback. The ways that they can beat you are multiple. And you have to have multiple ways that you can beat teams. When you look at New England, in my opinion, the only way New England can beat you is if Tom Brady has a tremendous day. He's got to throw for 350. Gronk has to go off. Like, there's only a certain number of ways that New England can beat you, especially with the way that defense is playing right now. I don't think it's too far because when you have multiple ways that you can win football games, I like those teams better than the ones that can only win it singularly.
Kareem Hunt had 121 yards from scrimmage, so he's had 4 consecutive games to start his career with at least 100 yards from scrimmage. The record is 5, held by Adrian Peterson, so he's one shy of that. Hunt has been spectacular, and to further your point, let me give you a number on Hunt that really illustrates where the National Football League is right now. Here's where running the football makes a difference. In the second halves of these games, you can do a lot of different things. Booger, you played on the defensive side. Golick, of course, played on that defensive line for all those years as well. And in that second half, when the defense is getting worn down and getting tired, is when Kareem Hunt is warming up. Kareem Hunt has rushed for more yards in the second halves of games this season than any other running back has for the entirety of the year. I hope that stat is clear as I'm reading it to you. He's run for 372 yards in the second halves of games this year. No other running back in the league has 372 rushing yards. So Kansas City is wearing you down with that attack and giving it to this young kid with fresh legs in the second half, and it makes a difference. And you pointed it out as well. Alex Smith, people don't talk about him practically at all.
Yes.
And one of the things that he runs with the ball about as well as any quarterback in the league. Find me a quarterback who runs with it more effectively. He does both things. He stretches the play like some guys do, and he runs for first downs very, very effectively.
Greeny, to your point about teams running the ball in the second half, who does that remind you of? Let's go back in time a little bit. The Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys would throw the football early, and in the second half they would turn it over to the offensive line and Emmitt Smith, and they would grind you out. They would get a lead with the passing game, defense or whatever, and in the second half it was Emmitt Smith time. I would love to know Emmitt Smith's rushing yards in the second half because they have to be up there. And his ability to run the football coupled with Alex Smith is underrated. And oftentimes we become prisoner of our initial thought. And our initial thought was Alex Smith's a bust. He's a guy, he'll never be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Greeny, he's one of the better starting quarterbacks now. We can call him a game manager. Essentially, every quarterback is a game manager. Okay, he's not a guy that's going to throw it 50 times, but what he is, he's a guy that can make plays at the quarterback position. He's not a one-trick pony. He can throw the football. He can get outside the pocket. And there are not a lot of quarterbacks, probably a handful in this league, that I'd rather have than Alex Smith. And I think if you're Andy Reid, yes, you drafted Patrick Mahomes for the future. But Alex Smith is showing you right now how he's playing, that the future may be put off a little while longer in Kansas City.
Here's what I'll say about Alex Smith. And this is going to sound like damning with faint praise, but it's really not. He, to me, is more than good enough. There are 3 levels of quarterbacks, if you want to make it this simple. in the National Football League. There are the guys who, just by having them on the field, your team is way better than it otherwise is and has a chance to win. And there are a very small handful of those guys. Aaron Rodgers and Brady and Belichick, Roethlisberger, who we can debate who they are,
right?
But there's a small number of those.
Only a small number.
And then there are the guys who are more than good enough. Two of them were on the field last night.
Yep.
Kirk Cousins, to me, is more than good enough. I don't know if he's great. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's never going to be. But he's more than good enough. You can win a championship with that guy as your quarterback if the rest of your team is good. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other half of the league, which have guys who aren't good enough. So that is and they're desperately trying to find someone who's more than good enough. Everyone thinks they're looking for Aaron Rodgers. There's like two of them in the whole planet. You're just fine if you have someone who's more than good enough. To me, Alex Smith is more than good enough.
Greeny, I'll make it a lot more simple than that. To me, there's a line.
Yeah.
You're either above the line or you're below the line.
Fair enough.
If you're below the line, then I'm looking for somebody else because you can't help my team win in any form or any facet. If you're above the line, then you can do things to help my team win, whether they are ordinary or extraordinary. I'll keep it really simple. Alex Smith, he's above the line. Kirk Cousins, he's above the line. And I think when you look at a guy like Blake Bortles, he's below the line, just to give you a separation. So make a line. Your guy is either above the line or below the line. And we saw two quarterbacks last night that are above the line. How far, that's up to you to know that they are above the line, but they are above that line.
All right, so again, Kansas City with the win and the cover and the over on the crazy final play. We have sound bites coming from both sides. Let me give you a little Straight Talk here, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Little hidden number in last night's game where the game changes. When Josh Norman is on the field last night, Kansas City has a combined total of 0 points. They were throwing the ball for about 5 yards per attempt, and their quarterback, Alex Smith, was being pressured 44% of the time that he went back. Now, I know these are a lot of numbers, but it's as simple as this. With Josh Norman on the field last night, Washington's defense is entirely different because they were able to put him out there on an island. They're able to allow him to do his thing. They can bring other people. They can get after the quarterback. They can do a lot of other things defensively that Booger could explain better than I could. Norman goes out with ribs late in the second quarter of that game. By the way, he's going to be out a couple of weeks. From that point forward, all of the numbers change. The Chiefs scored 23 points offensively as opposed to the 0 they had with Norman on the field. They are pressured on only 20% of their dropbacks, about half the time. So you can explain better than I the difference that a guy like Josh Norman, which you don't look at a stat sheet and say, well, he had this many passes defensed and he had this many interceptions. The difference in that defensive look when he's on the field.
Well, what you can do when you have a shutdown corner, you can essentially take away the number one weapon on the outside. When you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, they're trying to get the football to Kelsey. Okay, their tight end who wants to be like Gronk so bad it's not even funny. Like, he wants to be Gronk Jr. every time you watch him with his mannerisms and all those things. But he's a very, very good tight end. So Norman can take away the outside, whether that's Hill or Harris, whoever that is on the outside. And now you can take your linebackers and your safeties who don't have to help Norman. Now they can focus and help on Kelsey because Kelsey's going to take over the middle of the field. He's going to roam the center. And when Alex Smith gets in trouble, he is going to look for Kelsey. Very similar to what the Cowboys and a lot of teams, Richard Sherman, when you have a number one guy, now you take the other 10 guys and you devote them to the other 9 offensive guys. And so it's basically a numbers game. And Josh Norman allows the Redskins to play the numbers game. Where Kansas City is different, their best receivers are tight end. So it forces you now to bring safeties and linebackers and play bracket coverage and things of that nature. That's where they're different. Their best receiver goes up the middle, and all their complementary guys are on the outside. So they're a little bit different to defend when you have a number one corner like Josh Norman.
The best of Mike and Mike.
My buddy Mitch Truitt is listening, and he sent me a note. Said, you are for sure the only morning show host in the world and perhaps ever who could invoke Zero Mostel and a Jets analogy. Be careful going to the cafeteria after the show. There is a 50% chance someone is going to take your lunch money. And he's right, and you were right as well. That was poorly handled by me. I should have come up with practically any other analogy besides the producers.
Yeah, well, listen, first of all, 99% of the people listening have no idea who the producers or what the producers are. I didn't.
That's an exaggeration.
Well,
I believe more than 1% of the people have heard of the movie The Producers.
First of all, I didn't know it was a movie. I thought it was a play.
It started out as a movie. It was a classic Mel Brooks movie.
Classic may be a stretch.
It was a classic.
Okay. It was
I don't know how. If there's an official definition of classic, I believe that it is one. But go ahead.
Well, you could have made the analogy so much more simple.
You're correct.
By just saying, hey, you know what? They're trying to be bad. They're actually good. maybe they're not good at being bad at all, and just left it at that.
Right. They're very bad at being bad. They were bad. Here's the problem with my life with the Jets. They were bad at being good, and now they're bad at being bad.
Exactly.
We can figure out something they're good at, then I'll probably be in a much better mood, all things considered. Let's finish up the conversation we were having before the end of the previous hour, and we'll get Timmy Kirchin in coming up in about a half hour here, looking ahead to the Yankees and Twins tonight, which, again, you'll see on ESPN, and you'll hear it right here on ESPN Radio. And I have a love-hate relationship with the one-game second wild card. First and foremost, I love what it has done for the regular season. Adding the second wild card, I think, was absolutely brilliant for the regular season. It has created a significance to winning the division.
Correct.
There was a time when the difference between the Red Sox and the Yankees, for example, going into this postseason would have been basically nothing. Right. The difference between winning the division and being the wild card was practically nothing, and I didn't like that. Mm-hmm. So I love the idea that it has put a premium on winning the division. There is a distinct disadvantage for both the Yankees and Twins going into these playoffs versus the rest of the teams in the American League, and the same, of course, in the NL as well. So I love that. And of course, look, for TV's sake, I mean, we've got it on ESPN tonight, and tomorrow is Turner, right? Has the National League game, or Fox? Is it Turner or Fox? Turner has it. Whoever has it. Doesn't make any this has nothing to do with the fact that we have the game tonight. But obviously, there's something incredibly exciting about a one-game winner-take-all scenario. That speaks for itself. That said, the notion of settling something this significant in one game doesn't sit well. Exactly. It just doesn't feel right. So what I would do, if you made me the king of the world or the commissioner of baseball, is I would make it a best of three. And if you wanted to satisfy your idea of giving home field bigger advantage, just play them all in the park of the team with the better record. So you don't have travel in there, so you can get through it relatively quickly. Make it a quick best of three and give home field advantage to the team with the better record. Now, that would serve a lot of it would create a lot of unnecessary or unforeseen negative consequences.
Yes.
The teams that are sitting and waiting don't want to sit and wait that long. They get out of their rhythm. They get out of their routine. They don't want that. It actually would in some ways wind up not serving the purpose that we want it to serve.
Yeah, I think 3 games would be too many. That's the reason I say keep it at 2, because 3 games, let's say it goes 3 games. So now the team that wins that 3-game series, if it has to go 3, now your pitching rotation is all out of whack.
Now, which it is a little bit already, but you're right. It would take it even further. So, again, to be clear, you're saying make the team with the lesser record have to win twice.
Twice. And the team that has the best record, if you win 1 game, it's done, over with, move on. If you're the team in the wild card with the lesser record, you have to win 2 games. Give the team that had the better regular season. Because here's the thing about it. What do we always say about baseball? It's game 57 of 162. Well, make the 162 mean just a little bit more. And this is another way you can make the games mean a little bit more in this situation. So I like this idea. I stole it. I'm going to be clearly honest about that, but it's mine now, and so I think we should go with it. Because mine is better than yours.
It's growing on me. The more I'm listening to you, the more it's growing on me. In spite of myself, I'm actually kind of starting to like it a little bit. We'll continue thinking it over as we bring our buddy Tom Waddle into the conversation here. Tommy, you hear him every afternoon in Chicago on ESPN 1000, Waddle and Sylvie. And, of course, you've heard him for years on our show and all the other shows here on ESPN. Good morning, Tom Waddle.
Good morning, guys. I'm getting some good information as well. We have the baseball commissioner, Rob Manfred, on our show this afternoon. Now I'm going to have some material for him. Thank you.
I like that. And, the Cubs were in this game 2 years ago, obviously, so you guys went through this, and your partner there, Sylvie, is the crazy Cub fan, as so many people in Chicago are. Obviously, we want to talk to you about Mitch Trubisky, but just quickly, what do you think of that? The one-game play-in scenario, Booger is saying, and you got it from Rossi, right?
Yeah, Rossi.
We took it from your guy Rossi, that if you want to make it a little better for the team with the better record, then make the road team or the lesser record team have to win twice in this round. What do you think of it?
I'd never heard it, so I'm going to have to sleep on it, but I kind of like it. I've always thought baseball was a game of series, so playing just one game to advance after 162 regular season games always seemed a little odd to me, but I do understand the scheduling conflict that it would cause to make the wild card a 3-game series. So Booger's got a very good idea, stolen idea, but a good idea that I think I'm going to have to sleep on a touch.
Nobody steals an idea like Booger McFarland. You can trademark that. Timmy Kirchin, will bounce it off him in about 25 minutes, and we'll get his reaction. Meanwhile, Tommy Waddle, we wanted to talk to you about the quarterback change. So first, let's get two separate takes from you. The first is let's hear the reaction. I was on your show a couple of weeks ago. You weren't there that day, but I was on with the guys, and I know that everyone has been screaming and yelling in Chicago for this because the Bears have looked basically terrible, and Glennon has looked no better than anyone was hoping, and maybe even worse. So what were you hearing in phone calls yesterday on your show from Bears fans?
Well, I think it gives people some hope. Look, I would caution people starting a rookie quarterback, despite what you've seen from Deshaun Watson, who's got a better cast around him than Mitchell Trubisky will have around him in Chicago. There will be bumps. It's going to be a roller coaster ride. But with that said, I think it's giving people hope, and they're getting a glimpse of the future. And I think people realize all along this isn't a playoff caliber team, but it's a team that's been desperately in search of a quarterback answer for an extended period of time. So I think what everyone is looking forward to starting next Monday night is an opportunity to look at the future of this franchise. So there is some excitement. I do believe he will raise the level of play of several of the guys around him. I do believe there will be some mistakes, but we feel like we have some hope here in Chicago now, guys.
Tom, why not make this move at the beginning of the season and just go with it? I know people in Houston are saying Deshaun Watson should have started week one, and I think Greeny and I both agree with that. If you're a Chicago Bear fan, why not do this at the beginning of the year, since this is a season, by and large, there was really no chance for the Bears to be a playoff team anyway?
I think it's a good question. I think the answer that you would get from the Bears front office and from the coaching staff is if you look at the two quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, as you know, Booger, better than anybody, was a 3-year starter at Clemson and played on the biggest stage and under the brightest lights and excelled and maybe was more ready to play sooner than Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell had one season at North Carolina, and I think the plan all along was to be very patient with him, bring in Mike Glennon, allow him to kind of hold the seat of Mitch Trubisky for a while and let Mitchell sit back and watch and learn and then ultimately take over. But the fact that Mike Glennon wasn't able to manage games, which is what he was brought here to do, and it was actually the reason why they were losing games, I think it speeds up the plan for sure.
Was he? I mean, so you watch every snap of every game closely. How would you evaluate what you saw from Mike Glennon, who was probably now taken, I would assume, if Trubisky stays healthy? Glennon has taken his last snap as a Chicago Bear, so his future becomes, I guess, interesting, certainly to him and maybe to some other teams. How would you evaluate what we saw from Glennon in 4 games?
I would say the word that comes to mind, Greeny, is unacceptable. Look, I know the team liked Mike Glennon. They voted him a captain. I think that everyone felt he was a good leader. But at the end of the day, you're playing the most important and most difficult position in all of professional sports, and you've been brought here to take care of the football. He turned it over 8 times, 7 times in the 2 games where they never really competed against the Packers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you just can't live with a game manager who's not managing the game. And it wasn't all Mike Glennon's fault. He doesn't have a ton of talent around him inside that offensive huddle, but he did have his hand in a lot of the big mistakes that occurred and really took them out of games. So, look, I thought I didn't evaluate him correctly because I didn't think Mike Glennon's ceiling was enormously high, but I didn't expect the floor to be this low. I thought he would be significantly better than he's been in a short period of time here.
Tom, how does this affect John Fox? Because now you go to the rookie quarterback. Does this buy John Fox a little bit more time, or is he still going to be at the hot seat regardless of how this season ends?
Well, I believe they're 4-16 the last 20 games. So over the last year and a half. Last year was a big step backward for them as they were 3-13. There really was not the improvement that we're looking for in the second year of the staff. I think the eye test is more important really than the record. Again, if you're 3-13, there's going to be a coaching change. If they're a 6-10 team or they're a 7-9 team and Mitch gives them a spark, and it looks like Dowell Loggins is helping develop Mitchell Trubisky, I think you'll see this coaching staff back again next year. But Mitchell Trubisky isn't their best player, obviously. He's never taken a regular season snap, but he's their most important player. And his development is the most important thing about this organization going forward. So if they see that he's being developed appropriately over the next 12 games, then I do believe the coaching staff will be back.
My last thought, Tom Waddle is with us from Chicago on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, where Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Is this a move that's being made out of desperation because they look so bad on national TV on a Thursday night and because the coach knows that he's coaching for his job? Or is this a move that is being made because the kid has shown himself to be ready, that something has happened in these last 4 weeks that said he wasn't ready on September 1st, but he is ready on October 1st?
The answer is yes to all of it. I think that they're impressed with what they've seen from Mitchell. I don't think they thought initially he was going to be as far along as he is. He played exceptionally well in the preseason. I think that you talk to people around the organization, they're very happy with how he's progressed, even in practice. I think he's more ready now than he was before. I don't know that a rookie quarterback's ever ready. There will be mistakes, but I think they're more comfortable now turning things over to him than they would have been at the start of the season, and it's a necessity now as well because Mike Glennon just hasn't taken care of the football. And listen, we're all human beings, and John Fox has got a nice resume as a head coach in this league. I believe this is his 16th year as a head coach in the league. He's taken 2 teams to Super Bowls, but you are what your record says you are, and they're 4-16 their last 20 games. So John knows he needs to give this organization a spark and win some games.
And finally, Tom, your thoughts on the 2-game suspension of Danny Trevathan. I thought 2 games was a bit much. Finally, quite frankly, to me, 1 game would have been a bit much. A personal foul call, yes. But to me, they're going overboard with the suspension. Your thoughts?
I thought it happened about the way I thought it would. Danny's not a dirty player. I don't believe it's difficult to determine intent. I don't believe the intent was to hurt. Danny never left his feet. It was unfortunate because Devontae Adams' head was coming down as Danny came in to finish the tackle. My guess was because of the nature of the hit and why it happened on national television, they would probably give him a 2-game suspension. I would be very surprised if they didn't. They have appealed it if they don't bring it down to just 1 game. I think because of the initiative to get the helmet-to-helmet contact out of the game, I understand why they did it. Again, I'm more of an intent guy, and I don't believe Danny Trevathan's intent ever on the field is to maim somebody. So I think it'll be appealed down to 1 game, and they'll move forward.
All right, Tom Waddle's got Rob Manfred on the show this afternoon, ESPN 1000. If you're in Chicago, make sure you're listening. Thanks, Tommy. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, guys. Have a good day.
It's Tommy Waddle with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Let's expand on that briefly. Your thoughts on that hit, because what I think a lot of people see is what looks like an unnecessary play. The runner looks stopped. He comes in. He's about the 3rd or 4th guy hitting him, puts his head straight down. I mean, if there's one conversation we've had more than any other over the last 2 years, I can hear Mike Golick saying it in my sleep at this point. Make sure you see what you hit. Trevathan is looking straight down at the ground and hits him with the crown of his helmet directly in the face mask. If that's not a dirty play and it's not actionable, then what is?
Greeny, it's not dirty. It's a football play that when 2 people are moving at high speed like that, things are going to happen from the standpoint. To me, Danny Trevathan is trying to come in. He's trying to lower his shoulder because he realizes he can't hit with his head. He's trying to lower his shoulder and move his head out of the way. And the receiver, who's being turned by 3 or 4 defenders, his head gets lowered. Now you have helmet-to-helmet contact. To me, the NFL isn't trying to legislate head-to-head contact out of football. What they're trying to do is legislate the optics out of it. Because if you're really trying to do it, offensive and defensive linemen have head-to-head contact every single play. But nobody really watches that. We're only watching the football. We're only watching when the receiver catches it and there's a huge hit. That's what we're watching. We're only watching when the quarterback gets hit on the sideline and there's a huge hit. So they're trying to legislate the optics or the perception that football is safer. There is no head-to-head or helmet-to-helmet contact. There's helmet-to-helmet contact with offensive and defensive linemen, with fullbacks and linebackers every single play. So I think it's a little hypocritical of the NFL to do that, especially to suspend the guy. If you want to throw a flag for unnecessary roughness, fine. Be my guest, do that. But do not suspend the guy for something that's been done for a long time. And just because it's been done for a long time doesn't make it right. But you have to understand the angles of football and how it looks and not just react to the optics and how people react and how social media is going crazy. And if this is not a hit, what is? It's football. You're going to have – it's the reason they wear helmets, put it like that. You're going to have that.
I understand what you're saying. And I understand that what you're telling me is that he didn't mean to do it. Tom Waddle just said intent. intent. But we can't legislate intent. Things happen on a football field so fast and so many. I can't sit here and tell you what he was or wasn't trying to do. I can tell you what happened. I can tell you that he put the crown of his helmet directly into the face mask of Davante Adams. That's what happened. Whatever his intent was, I don't know. But that's what wound up happening. And the only reasonable way I think you can officiate this stuff is to – at the end of the day, when I accept that intent is impossible to determine at all times, then I get why they would say, you know what, at the end of the day, I just have to legislate based upon what happened. He hit him with the crown of his helmet.
Make it fair then. Make it fair. Make it fair when a running back is running the ball and he lowers the crown of his helmet as a corner or a linebacker.
Right.
Make it fair. Don't make it so one-sided, because right now it's one-sided when the guy who's not looking is hit by a defender who's coming in with the crown of his helmet. Everybody goes crazy. But when the running back has the football and he's coming around the corner and there's a linebacker or a safety coming, and the first thing he does is lower his head, what's that? He's using the crown of his helmet as a weapon. It's not fair from a defensive standpoint that the defenders are getting penalized for football plays just because of the optics and because of the perception that people see, when everybody else, from fullbacks, running backs, they do it all the time. Watch the number of fullbacks and running backs that lower their helmet when coming and being opposed by a defender. It happens all the time. But because of the perception that the National Football League wants to put off, hey, this game is so much safer. Listen, man, football is a collision sport. There's only so much safety you can have in it. And I think from an optical standpoint and a perception standpoint, we want this game perceived to be safer and better, and it's never going to be that.
I hear what you're saying. The other thing I hear is this is now suddenly turned into I play defense, and I'm upset with all these rules that are penalizing the defense guys instead of the offense guys.
I can see how it comes across
when the running
like
back puts his helmet down, the defensive guy has plenty of opportunity to see it and to react to it. He's not defenseless in any way. He's actually playing defense. The offense guy, you can't be defenseless when you're playing defense. Those two things don't work together. You can be defenseless when you're on offense.
But it doesn't change the fact
Adams has no control in that moment when three guys are holding on to him over where his helmet is going to wind up. He's falling down because three people are tackling him.
Understood. But if you're a defender and you're coming, and at the last minute the running back lowers his head, I mean, essentially you're in the same position.
But that wouldn't be a penalty. The defensive player isn't going to get a penalty for hitting that guy in the head.
And neither is the offensive guy. That's my point. The offensive guy is doing exactly the same thing that the defensive guy does when it comes to lowering his helmet and using the helmet, the crown of the helmet, as a weapon. I would love to know what's the difference right there.
I understand well, I think there's a difference. I understand what you're saying, but so the offensive line and the defensive line, you guys play defensive line all your career,
yes.
right? Are your helmets actually colliding on every snap of every play? Not really, right? You're lined up on someone's shoulder.
A lot, Greeny. A lot. I mean, a lot.
But
I wouldn't say every play, but it's a lot.
But you're only coming from, a foot away from each other as opposed to someone is running and coming at a large. See, that's what I don't know. That's why so much of this stuff has to be studied and understood. And I think that there is a natural contradiction in what you necessarily want to know.
Right.
If you have to take that out, okay, if that is going to cause a lot of problems later in life, those just then football doesn't work.
Right.
You just can't play football anymore.
Correct.
Right? You can take what Danny Trevathan did out of the game. You can't take you against who's a guy you would have played against a million times. No one is jumping to mind. Larry Allen. Oh, my goodness.
That's a bad example.
That had to be brutal. Larry Allen, who could have bench pressed you. But you're playing against Larry Allen. You guys, if your helmet is hitting each other 60 times in a game, that can't be taken out.
Correct.
So if that is going to cause problems, if you can't have that, then you can't have football anymore, right?
I agree with that. The only point I'm making is you have to make some fairness of this helmet-to-helmet contact, especially when you have running backs who are power backs, Marshawn Lynch, Eddie Lacy, big back Zeke Elliott. When they come around that corner, Greeny, they're not looking and saying, hey, let me turn my shoulder, hit this. They're taking the crown of their helmet, and they're looking at that DB and say, yeah, little fella, come here. And they're plowing into him. At some point, where's the fairness of that?
So should that be a foul? Should they take that out of football?
They should take the fact that a running back can use the crown of his helmet as a weapon. If the helmet is the issue, understand this. I hear what you're saying about defenseless player.
Yeah.
Let's just take a look at the helmet as a weapon and spearing and all that good stuff, because the head is the central part of this.
Right.
If you can use the helmet as an offender, as an offensive guy. From a defensive standpoint, it just seems a little unfair, man, that you letting the offensive guy just kind of spear you and knock you out.
Okay.
Ask any corner out there. They would feel the same way.
I'm willing to listen to that conversation. Part of me is only hearing, I played defense all these years, and this isn't fair to the
that's because that's what you
defensive
want to
players.
hear. That's all you want to hear.
But there's another part of me that says I'm at least willing to hear you out.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
Ooh, all right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Here we are. We are Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line as we enter the busiest time on the entire sports calendar annually. We got the baseball playoffs beginning tonight. Yankees and Twins in the Bronx. You'll see it on ESPN. You'll hear it on ESPN Radio. The National League game is tomorrow. The playoffs get going in full force over the weekend. College football is in full swing. The NFL is in full swing. Ryan Clark will be here in just a minute. And the Kansas City Chiefs, Booger McFarland, are the last man standing, the last unbeaten team in the NFL.
And right now they look like the best team in football because of the multiple ways they can beat you. A defense that can rush the passer, Ford, Houston on the outside. They got depth at the defensive line position. Even losing Eric Berry. A lot of people thought when Berry went out, it would mean doom for this defense. The defense is playing well offensively. Alex Smith is above the line, and Greeny and I kind of defined the quarterback position. We made it really simple. We're not going to go tiers. It's really simple. Do you have a quarterback that's above the line that can help you win, or do you have a quarterback that's below the line that's going to be detrimental to you winning? Alex Smith is above the line. Hunt is outstanding. Their X factor, their biggest weapon from a receiver standpoint is their tight end, which is different than most teams. That's why they're so multiple. And Andy Reid might be the best play caller in football.
All right, we're going to talk a bunch about them as we continue, but Ryan Clark now joins us in our studio. So LSU is very well represented on this set at Mike and Mike right now.
We're not representing on the actual football field.
So used you guys this weekend against Troy. And I do want to talk about that. First of all, good morning, RC.
What's up, G? What's happening?
All right, so I want to. We were talking about this Danny Trevathan hit before you came in here, and Booger's. I don't mean to exaggerate. He's one of your best friends, obviously, right? It's Derek Brooks is going to be the one hearing the appeal today. And Booger believes that they'll reduce it from 2 games to 1. But I asked a question, and you were one of the biggest hitting guys in the NFL. Your reputation was that you just hit guys. And Booger, I'll let you say it again. You came up with you had a terrific phrase in Tampa.
Yeah, in Tampa, we had a saying, if it's wiggling, hit it. Meaning if
no
the ball
question.
carrier's still moving and you're coming, you top the pile off. If it's wiggling, you hit it.
Yeah, no question.
The question that I have, he said that Derek Brooks will ask Danny Trevathan, tell me what you were thinking as you're coming over. And I'm asking an honest question to someone like you. You're flying around that field as fast as you can. You practice every single day all the time so that you don't have to think, right? So that you're out there just reacting instinctively. So when you see that guy wiggling, is there a thought in your mind beyond just getting there and hitting?
No, absolutely not. The reason you run to the ball at practice, the reason you do all of those things is so when you get on the field, like Booger says, you don't stop until the player is down. You don't stop until the whistle is blown. And that's exactly what Trevathan was doing. And obviously for the NFL, this is a reaction to all the bad press, all the parents out there saying, I'm not going to let my child play football, or all the CTE, different news that's being reported. And they have to show that they are doing their best job to legislate certain things out of the game. If you want to legislate it out of the game, blow the whistle, right? Because if you blow the whistle, then now we all know it's a penalty because the play is supposed to be stopped because we all heard it. And so with Danny Trevathan, and he knows that the play is over. If he's continuing to play, if he's continuing to try to get a yard, you have to cap it off. I remember even, once the rules started to change for us, when I was playing, we're playing against the Philadelphia Eagles, and the tight end catches the ball, and he's stretching for extra yards, and I cap it off, and they call a penalty. And I told the referee, if you don't want me to hit him, blow the whistle. If it's still possible for him to advance the ball, it is my job to stop him. And obviously, the optics of the hit are bad, right? The way it looks. Devontae not getting up and having to be carried off in the manner he was. Nobody ever wants to see that. And so for football, it's about doing damage control on the way it looks more so than the rule saying that play is illegal.
Look, I'm just a fan of this game, right? Who am I to be disagreeing with you? But the one piece of this I disagree with is, if there's one thing I hear Mike Golick say over and over and over again, it is see what you hit. Trevathan hits him with the top of his head directly in the face. Now, you can tell me that he was trying to hit him in the shoulder and that Davante Adams, his pad level changed, or in this case, his head level changed. That I get. But Trevathan hits him with the very top of his helmet. I mean, if that's not specifically against what they're trying to get out of the sport right now, then what is?
Well, it's specifically what they're trying to get out of the sport, but there is no rule for that. There's no rule for that as a runner, Greeny. And so if you look at the college rule, which I hate,
targeting,
because it takes guys out of the game. That's part of targeting in the college rules. That's part of targeting in the high school rules. If you are an actual runner and you are hit with the crown of the helmet, they can kick you out of the game. That's not part of the NFL rules, Greeny. And so now, if you want this to be a hit that is not part of the game, you have to legislate it out in black and white. That's not something that we're focusing on. And Golick says, see what you hit, and that all makes sense. But when you're in the heat of the moment and you're trying to make a play, there are going to be sometimes your eyes drop. There's going to be many times that your eyes are closed. Like, there's a ton of times I was running up to a hit and I felt like my eyes are open, but right before you made contact, they're closed. And then you open them up and you're like, oh, shoot, he's on the ground. Right? And I'm not trying to make it funny, but Booger knows it, man. Like, when you get in that split second and to somebody outside it says, you know what, he purposely tried to spear this guy and put him out the game. It's just not how it happens. You don't have the time for that thought.
Here's where I think the rules are unfair a little bit. When it comes to this helmet-to-helmet and using the helmet and illegal contact and all that stuff. When a running back has the football, how many times as a safety did you see a running back coming to you, big back, and the first thing he did was drop his head and come and try to run you over?
Oh, it was all the time. And it was, Booger, how it works. Sometimes they weren't even trying to get yards after me. They were just trying to punish me.
Exactly.
Yeah, so definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Mort, when you brought that up earlier, Mort did send a note just for clarification on the rule. There is now a rule that's been in effect for just a few years that an offensive player with the ball cannot initiate with the crown of his helmet outside of the tackle box. So, yeah, if he's running up the middle, he can put his head down and try and bowl over Ryan Clark. Mort says, I've only seen it called a couple of times.
Yeah, I haven't seen it called a lot.
I haven't seen it called at all because running backs do it, and they do it every Sunday, just about in every game.
It is theoretically, or it is a rule. It is a rule technically, and Mort just wanted to make sure that was in the conversation. And we as always appreciate him chiming in. One way or another, we had Tom Waddle on, and we were talking about this earlier this morning, and what I would say is I agree with you guys. As I watch that play, I totally am willing to believe, especially a player who has no history, that he's not doing that on purpose. He's not thinking to him. I don't think he has time to think anything. He's not thinking to himself, I'm going to knock this guy's block off. But if they're trying to get that out of the game and you don't penalize this, if you don't suspend that guy for that play, then who can you suspend for anything?
Listen, I don't disagree with that part of it. Right? I'm not saying I don't understand why he's suspended for 2 games. I get it. I get the reason they're doing it. But let's not say it's because we have rules that legislate that hit out. What we have is a very reactive NFL and a very opinionated public right now that says, you know what, they better do something about this. Right? When you're talking on the telecast and saying, okay, we're going to see what happens after this game, will he be suspended? When those things start to surface, when Greeny and Golick come on the next morning and it's one of the biggest topics of the day, that's what the NFL is reacting to. They're reacting to the way it looks. And so when all of those things happen, if Devontae gets up and it's like, ooh, man, that was a good hit, and runs back to the huddle, it's a different thing for all of us. It's a different feel. It's a play we've probably seen a ton of times in football, but the guy got up. And so now that's the difference. They have to be cautious of how they are perceived publicly.
Yeah. All right, Ryan Clark is here. Let me move on. I have limited time with Ryan. I have so many things I want to get into. He's got the Straight Talk brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. I would be remiss if I did not get a thought from you guys on LSU. Again, 2 of the highest profile LSU football alums. I'm sorry, Ryan, but I need you. No, you're not. The witness is not allowed off the. No, I need you back on the stand.
I was just trying to see.
No, point of order here. Can I have? Where's the gavel? I need. Yeah, no, we need him. Ryan, sit down. I need you here. All kidding aside, I'm reading story after story that we are now 5 games into the Ed Orgeron era, and I'm seeing the words buyer's remorse. Mm-hmm. It would be dereliction of my responsibility as a talk show host if I did not ask the two of you, again, super high-profile LSU alums. Booger, I'll give you the floor first. Your thoughts on that notion.
Because here's what I know. If Booger goes first, whatever I say is going to be so light and gentle that – because I live in Baton Rouge. Booger don't live there. Perfect.
Here's what I'll say. Ed Orgeron is under a lot of heat right now because the football team isn't playing well. And in my opinion, here's why the team isn't playing that well. LSU used to be a physical football factory. It was always going to be a north-south physical football team with the running backs they had, Leonard Fournette, and on and down the list. Now you bring in a new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, from Pittsburgh, who's got all these different gadgets and motions. And LSU's problem over the years, which has been offense and quarterback, is now going to be solved. And Matt Canada has turned LSU into a soft football team. The offensive line.
So we're blaming Matt Canada for the whole team being soft, Boog?
I'm not going to blame Matt Canada. So here's what's happened. Now the offense is soft. The offense makes the defensive line soft, so you have no physicality. And Ed Orgeron, his job is to make sure that this football team returns to order. They're a young football team. They're not playing very well. I don't think they're a motivated football team right now. The motivation falls on the head coach. The offense falls on Matt Canada. The youth, the recruiting, we can go on and on down the list. The bottom line is, from a buyer's remorse standpoint, I think it's way too soon. Mm-hmm. He's 5 games in. Mm-hmm. I think you have to give him an opportunity to right the ship that a lot of people are thinking that he screwed up. But it's no doubt LSU is not the same team they were the last 2 years, and you can point at those 2 reasons, the offensive line and the motivation under Ed Orgeron.
Oh, yeah, I can say whatever I want now. That's why I let Booger go first, and I'm glad Greeny is such a great show host, and he knew that that I lived in Baton Rouge.
I made you stay.
Yeah,
you're trying to leave.
Well, I'll be honest. I see it a little bit different in Booger, and not in the sense that he's wrong by his analysis, just that I'm very emotionally tied to it. I don't do college football, but he's absolutely correct. This was a team that you were used to. Whether we would score 6 points or we'd score 35 points, it was going to be the most physical 6 points we could possibly produce. This team is different. Also, you look at the recruiting classes, and there's such a dearth of talent at LSU, and these players are so good. When I look down the list, at least at the draft eligible guys, we don't have those studs this year. Yeah. There aren't those guys, and you can say, well, it's coaching and not putting them in place. But we don't have the guys you look at and you see them and you're like, oh, where's Pat P, or where's Jarvis Landry, or where's Tyrann Matthew? We don't have those guys, and we especially don't have them, as Booger said, up front. We don't have the O linemen and the D linemen that change games, and I think that's a huge part of it. And another part of it is that we have an offense that's predicated. When I looked at this offense, and I think Matt Canada is extremely intelligent. We talk a lot when I go to the school. I really like him. It's an offense created for inferior talent, right? It's an offense created that Pittsburgh, who doesn't have the talent of Clemson, can go there and win a game, because sometimes people run wide open or adjustments aren't made. And so I think it's going to be an adjustment period, but we have to give Coach O this time for it to transition from the Les Miles regime to Ed Orgeron regime. And so if next year it starts off and it's the same way, I think then you start to think about buyer's remorse. But at least right now, we have to give him an opportunity to go through his ups and downs, or his downs, and see can he resurrect.
Yeah, Greeny, you've only been married a month. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, you're leaving the seat up.
I get it.
I mean, she's not coming home and bringing flowers, or the meal's not ready. Like, you guys have to figure out
what your wife brings flowers?
I understand what you're saying.
Awesome.
Yeah, sometimes.
But the point is that I get it, that sometimes you stick that out and sometimes you get an annulment, right? I mean, so not every marriage gets into a divorce. Sometimes you say, you know what, holy smoke, we made a huge mistake here, and let's get out of this thing before we have kids. And
1 month.
But you didn't get a prenup, though.
Well, right.
So you got to. So in the marriage, in this marriage scenario, We didn't get a prenup.
But they were willing to buy out. This is a school that's got all the money in the world to buy out a football coach, right?
It's not a state with all the money.
They're already
losing to Troy.
Les Miles is already being paid. Les Miles is getting a check every month. Are you ready?
Yeah.
For $133,000 every month.
Right.
That's part of the buyout.
Yeah.
Okay, $9.5 million roughly.
Was that similar to the check that Troy got for $985,000 to come in and play?
Wow, Greeny, what a friend!
It's too soon, Greeny.
Okay.
It's especially after the quarterback of Northwestern did what he did Saturday.
Listen. I want to hear nothing about that whatsoever. Who's running the show here? Hold on a second. Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. All right, Ryan, next I want a couple of quick NFL takes from you. Everyone is talking about the Patriot defense, and there's no question it's struggling. They've given up 300 yards passing in all 4 of their games. But to me, the bigger problem in New England is that Tom Brady, at the age of 40, has been sacked 13 times in 4 games. He's on pace to be sacked 52 times. Which to you, if there's going to be a downfall, will be the Patriots' downfall this year? Their defense or their inability to protect Brady?
It'll be the defense, because we've had the same conversation about the inability to protect Tom Brady. We had to bring people out of retirement to come coach the offensive line because we felt like Tom Brady wasn't protected sufficiently, and they still won games in New England. It's a big problem to me that now teams go into playing New England. If you look at the Carolina Panthers scheme and strategy, it was to get the New England Patriots defense in stack formation and bunch formations and motion formations because they felt like they couldn't communicate and cover. Mm-hmm. That is not a staple of a Matt Patricia defense and a Bill Belichick team. So when you have those issues, when you spent the type of cap numbers that they have in the secondary and people are running free, that is an issue. When you're not being beat physically, I can take that. If you line up a guy man on man and your guy is better, I can deal with it. If your guy is running wide open, because we as adult men and guys who get $40 million guaranteed don't know where they're supposed to be, that's an issue.
But 4 games into the season, everyone says, they said all day yesterday, it's Bill, it's Matt, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt they can fix it. Here's my thought. 4 games in, when you got veteran players, Butler, McCourty, Gilmore, and they're still having communication issues 4 games in, do you think that's a bigger issue than the fact that maybe it just happened 1 or 2 games?
No, absolutely. I think it's a big issue when you're the New England Patriots and McCourty's been to Pro Bowls. Patrick Chung has been there twice. Stephon Gilmore is a Pro Bowler from Buffalo that you bring over on a big money deal. Malcolm Butler is a big piece. When these guys can't figure it out in the back end, that is an issue. We've seen Tom Brady be sacked before. We've seen Tom Brady take hits before. That's why when Bill Belichick was asked about it, he was like, shoot, well, it's football. What you want me to do, run it 70 times?
I get it, but he's 40, and, I mean, at some point, I understand. We keep talking about Tom Brady like he's Superman, or Herman calls him Captain America, but he's 40 years old. He's getting
but he's a man. He's 40.
He's right.
Okay, Mike.
Exactly. He doesn't have Mike Gundy's mullet, but I understand the point. All right, next matter of business. 2 quarterback questions for you, and my quick NFL takes from Ryan Clark.
That wasn't quick. I'm sorry.
Derek Carr, 2 to 6 weeks with a back. If it's 2 weeks, obviously they'll live with it. If it's 6 weeks, does
next season?
And what's that?
Next season.
Next season.
Yep.
Right. So there's my answer. They're done. Their chances of winning this year are done.
They were a team the first 2 weeks. I had eye patches and Pirates booties at my house. I had all kind of stuff going on. It was me, Oakland, Marshawn Lynch. We was gonna meet at the Super Bowl, but the last 2 weeks, the inability to run the ball, the inability to protect the quarterback was something I didn't see coming from this team. And now with Derek Carr out, if you think back to last year, when Derek Carr out, it wasn't just the offense that suffered. Defensively, as a team, they seem to have all the air let out of their balloon. If he's out for an extensive period of time, I don't know how they overcome that.
They've got 3 straight home games coming up now in October, and some of them are interesting. This week they have Baltimore at home. That's a good defense. Then they get the Chargers at home, and then they play a Thursday night game at home against Kansas City, the last unbeaten team in the NFL. So 3 interesting games, 2 of them in the division. And then finally, the Bears making the decision to go to Mitchell Trubisky. In your mind, is this the right time and the right move for Chicago to make?
Absolutely. It's the right time. If I'm a veteran in that locker room and I'm watching Mike Glennon play, my first thought is, the present is extremely bleak, right? We're not going to win games with that type of quarterback play. Mm-hmm. My second thought is we also aren't building for the future. I can take 4 turnovers from Mitchell Trubisky, who is a rookie, who's trying to make plays with his legs, who's trying to figure out this league, you can't accept that from Mike Glennon. Because now not only are we trying to win games now, we also aren't building toward anything. There also isn't a process in place for us to be a better team. And I don't believe that Mike Glennon was going to get better. I don't believe that he was the guy in the first place. If he was a bridge, he was a very faulty bridge. And now it's time for Mitchell Trubisky to at least get in there, try to learn on the run, try to learn under the gun, and find a way to help this team not only be excited about football, as if you're a Chicago Bears fan, but also find ways to create plays with his athletic talent, much like Mike Glennon couldn't do.
Here's the issue I have with it. Number one, if you look at Mike Glennon against the Atlanta Falcons, he made a couple of game-winning throws. They just dropped the football.
I agree.
Okay, number one, you beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Whether you say Mike Glennon played great or not, okay, I'll give you that. But to me, this is a reaction to what's going on. Public sentiment, get the rookie in, what's going on in Houston with Deshaun Watson.
Absolutely.
And if that's the reason you're making it, and you're not making that this move because of something you've seen at practice, in my opinion, it's the wrong move. You should only make this move if you've seen Mitchell Trubisky at practice and he's shown you something over the last 4 weeks that you didn't see during training camp. And I think that's why it's the wrong move. I would keep Mike Glennon in there until I see that. Don't fall into the public sentiment or the public pressure saying play the rookie right now. That's the only concern I have about this move.
Well, I understand that you're definitely going to get that push from the public to play the rookie when your team as a whole is playing the way they are in the passing game. Now, they don't have weapons outside. Right. There isn't people on the outside that are going to make Mitchell Trubisky better. But he's a guy who can move the pocket. We saw him in the preseason. He's a guy who can get out of the pocket. You can give him a run-pass option. He can make the right decision, also pick up some yards with his legs. And I agree with you. If you haven't seen the things at practice that makes you think he is a quarterback who can help you win football games, you shouldn't put it in. But I am leaning on the fact that these professionals, that John Fox and his staff, have seen the things they need to think he's the right call.
He is Ryan Clark, and the witness may now step down. You may be excused. It's a job well done. Thank you very much.
How does this Greeny guy even get a show? Is this his first year as a host? Does he not know that when you have a guest, you do the things to make them feel welcome?
Listen, you are more than welcome. Anytime. I didn't even get to my music questions for you here because we got filibustering on all these other matters. I wanted to ask you.
The best of Mike and Mike.
I can't believe you compared fracturing a bone against your will.
They break your nose.
To literally getting your nose broken.
You understand I had a broken nose.
Yeah, but you asked him to do it.
Well, and yet it was broken. You didn't ask me if I was voluntary or not. You asked if I ever had a broken bone. The answer is yes.
Good point. But the two are not the same, okay? I've broken arms, foots.
Foots?
Yeah, I've broken both feet.
Right, but that's okay, so not foots, just to be clear.
Well, I mean, okay.
One way or another.
Correct here.
Let's get Sean into this conversation because I loved the call at the end of the game last night. Sean McDonough, who, of course, does a terrific job on the play-by-play for Monday Night Football alongside John Gruden, joins us this morning. And good morning, Sean. Greeny and Booger here. And I wonder, because play-by-play guys, you have to walk a fine line between acknowledging and not acknowledging what just happened. And that last play, which had no bearing whatsoever on who won and lost the game, obviously had an enormous bearing on the point spread and the over. Sean, give us a sense of, as the play-by-play guy, what thoughts go through your mind when you see something like that happen?
Well, I think we're sometimes aware. I had noticed in the paper a day or two ago what the point spread was, so I had that roughly in my mind. I honestly don't pay much attention to it. And, speaking of wagering, if I had to bet on all the things that I would be following as I started talking on this segment with you, whether or not rhinoplasty is a fracture or not probably never would have come into my mind.
Well, can you weigh in on that, Sean?
Please do, Sean.
I don't know if you can. But the odds on that had to be very long, for sure. But, no, I was loosely aware of it, and then, when he picked the ball up and started running toward the end zone, Justin Houston, I got on the talk back to the truck, and I said, does anybody know what the point spread was? After I said, this might be meaningful, because I really didn't know for sure if it was meaningful or not, but I thought it would be. So, we've seen other examples of that. I've always appreciated Al Michaels, obviously now on Sunday Night Football, but one of my predecessors on Monday Night Football. And to me, if he's not the best football play-by-play announcer of all time, he is certainly among the very best. And, he would always make a passing reference at least toward the end of the game if there were some people who still might be interested, even though the result of the game had long since been decided.
Yeah, not only was it the point spread, by the way, but by half a point it was the over also. So that turns out to be.
Yeah, I figured that might be the case as well. You know, if I went there, then in my own mind, I'm kind of saying, all right, now maybe now we're running a gambling show instead of covering football games. So I didn't want to go all the way there, but I figured once we made the reference to the point spread that people could draw their own conclusion about the over and under. And from what I've read now this morning, that really depended on, I guess, where you placed the bet, or because I think the over and under was roughly around 48 and a half. So that was certainly in play too.
Yeah, it was. But what we had, it was the over by half a point. All right, Sean McDonough here, play-by-play, Monday Night Football. I'm dying to get your insider perspective on the two quarterbacks in this game and the specter of their futures that sort of hang over their seasons. Kansas City is the last unbeaten team in the sport. They're playing great, and Alex Smith is playing great. He was terrific last night in moments when they really desperately needed him. And he is as aware as anyone, and I've heard him talk about it, that the Chiefs have drafted his heir apparent and that this may be his final year in Kansas City, but they have Super Bowl aspirations. I'm just curious because you spend time with him and around the team in the days leading up to the game. To what extent did you see that weighing or hanging over this team at this point in their season?
Not at all. Matter of fact, John Gruden said it last night, and I agree with him. We were both really impressed by how well Alex has handled that. And he basically said, hey, it doesn't matter if Pat Mahomes is here or not. You know, I have to play well, and if I don't play well, somebody else is going to play. And if it means that next year Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, I'll go play someplace else. At the very least, he's certainly helping his cause in free agency if they make the decision to go with Mahomes next year. And Kirk Cousins, the same thing. You know, to me, the only benefit for him for taking a long-term deal that he's been offered a couple of times now is the security and the guaranteed money. But, you know, he played on the franchise tag last year for $20 million. He's playing this year for almost $24 million, so that's $44 million. As he said, you know, if I do get hurt and perhaps I can't play going forward, you know, he's already made $44 million plus what he made prior to these 2 years. So, you know, he's set for life too. So I think they both handled their situations remarkably well. They're both great competitors who really are, I believe, sincerely only focused on winning the football games and playing as well as they can.
Sean, I'm curious, as you watch the Kansas City Chiefs play and you watch the multiple ways that they can play and beat you and win the football game, do you get the sense that right now, the way they're playing, they're the best team in football, in your opinion?
I think they are, you know, based on the results. I think 4-0 being the only undefeated team is impressive, particularly given who they've played. But as you know, Booger, they're really sound in all three phases of the game. You know, the one question mark about special teams last night was the kicker, and I thought he did a phenomenal job of answering that, particularly after missing his first kick in the NFL. To come back and make 3 in a row was pretty impressive. And yeah, I think they're very, very well coached. We said during the pregame show last night, to me, one of the most underappreciated, underpublicized coordinators in the league is Bob Sutton. And, you know, they're just very well coached on all sides of the ball. Dave Tobe is generally regarded as one of the very best special teams coaches in the league, along with a couple others. Jerry Rosburg of the Ravens would come to mind, too.
Mike and Mike, Sean McDonough, play-by-play Monday Night Football. We'll have your partner, John Gruden, tomorrow, as we do every single Wednesday here, and we'll start looking ahead at that point to next week's Monday night game. And, Sean, you guys got some nice juice injected into that game as the Bears will make the much-anticipated quarterback change to go with the rookie Mitchell Trubisky. And I know you're still winding down from last night's game, but what is your sense of that as you guys will have the rookie debut of the second pick in the draft next week against the Vikings?
Well, selfishly, as you just alluded to it, yeah, a little bit excited about that. You know, last year it seemed like we couldn't catch a break, and we were hitting teams that were surprisingly bad or coming into the game with a lot of key players who were injured. And this year, you know, we were catching a lot of breaks. I thought the fact that Kansas City was the only undefeated team last night and Washington was coming off a big win was obviously great for all of us at Monday Night Football. And now Mitchell Trubisky making his debut is excellent. I heard what Booger said before I came on, and I would agree with him. You know, you would think it would be a product of the fact that he's earned it by the way he has practiced, and we'll find more about that as we go there this week and talk to them. But, you know, he was very impressive in the preseason for sure, and I think we're seeing with the performance of guys like Deshaun Watson that a lot of these guys come into NFL football ready to go. We were talking about Patrick Mahomes a few minutes ago. Watching him practice, if anything happened to Alex Smith or all of a sudden he started not to play as well as he has been, based on what I've seen and what the Kansas City Chiefs people say, I think Mahomes could step in and perform at a very high level right now.
It's a really fascinating dynamic that you have there because you have Smith who's playing so well, and they could make a deep run this year and still might consider making a quarterback change. Yeah, the game next week is the Vikings and the Bears. It'll be the debut of Mitchell Trubisky, and we'll see Sean McDonough and company there. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
That's Sean McDonough with us again, Monday Night Football. And again, I'm always fascinated by that because I believe, they're discouraged from talking about the point spread. I think that's loosening up a lot. I mean, there was a time when we couldn't attach team names. Even in conversation on Mike and Mike, we couldn't attach team names.
Why has there been a
gambling
stigma with this for so long?
Well, because for the longest time they wanted to keep the separation of church and state, and because gambling is the single biggest threat to the mortality of these sports, right? I mean, gambling is a threat to the integrity internally, at least, of the sport. But look, they're putting a team in Las Vegas. Yeah. Everyone has acknowledged it's a big part of it. So it just is what it is. I mean, the reality is a lot of people were last night. That last play changed a lot of people's night. Right, I get it. If you're a fan of the Chiefs, if you're a fan of Washington, then you cared whether made the kick or not. Yeah. If you were most other people, you were a lot more concerned with that last scoop and score. They wound up going for a meaningless but very meaningful 6 points.
By the way,
for Kansas City,
breaking your nose doesn't count as breaking a bone, even if it was voluntary.
Because
there is no bone in the nose; it's cartilage.
Oh, I disagree with that 100%. There's no question. I have a bone in my nose.
No, from what I understand, I've never broken my nose. I'm sure you can tell.
I'm telling you right now, there's a bone in my nose.
Yeah, but
and
did
it doesn't
you
have
have
a
that one
bump
broken
in it that it used to.
That's more like cartilage.
I'm telling you right now, we're going to have to get to the bottom of this. Guys, get me a doctor. I need a doctor stat. I need what doctor is in charge of that?
Hauser.
An osteo, not Doogie Hauser. Who is it? who's the No, what is the doctor who deals with your bones? Why am I blanking on this all of a sudden?
I don't know.
All right, so just to get to the bottom of this nose thing, Steve Mormando tweets at me, have you ever seen a nose on a skull? It's cartilage, Greeny. Listen, Steve, I appreciate your chiming in here, but you know what I have seen? I've seen the Brady Bunch. All right, when Marsha gets hit in the nose and everything gets swolled up right there, that's not cartilage. That's a broken nose. You've heard the expression, a broken nose, right? I mean, you hear it all the time. He broke my nose.
It just depends on what you're referring to. Most people refer to the nose as the little snout part right here, where some people have a big one. You're talking about the nasal bone.
I had a nasal bone.
Exactly. I look at that as two different things. The nasal bone and the nose, in my opinion, it's probably wrong.
Well, where is your nasal bone? In your knee? I mean, it's in your nose.
It's near your nose, but is it actually the nose?
Near your nose, it is the nose.
It's part of it. I look at the nose, like some people have an overly large nose. You never heard of somebody say, you know what, his nasal bone is huge. No, the nose is huge.
I understand that. I want Dr. James Andrews. Can we get Dr. James Andrews on the phone? I need to get to the bottom of this. Meanwhile, I asked a question earlier this morning on Twitter, and can I tell you quickly that the Chargers were the 5th most watched game in L.A. this weekend?
Wow.
And that might include the 18,000 people who showed up and sat in the seats, or however many of them there were, all of whom were wearing Eagles jerseys. But I just got this note from our news desk at Chuck Salatura sent it to me. This past weekend, the most watched game in Los Angeles was Colts Seahawks. Now, that's an unfair comparison because it's a standalone game, right? That was the Sunday night game. The second most watched game was Rams Cowboys, so at least they watched the Rams. Right. The third most watched game was Raiders Broncos. They're all Raider fans, and that was on at the same time as Chargers Eagles. More people watched the Raiders in L.A. than watched the Chargers and Eagles. The Dolphins and Saints also had more viewers. That game started at 6:30 in the morning in Los Angeles, and more people. I get that it's standalone, but still more people watch that than watch the Chargers. They have a genuine problem. I mean, the city of L.A. doesn't want the Chargers. They don't want it. I mean, the mayor acknowledged it. The fans are speaking as loudly as they possibly can by not showing up in droves. What are they going to do?
Well, I don't know if they want the Rams. I think that Rams-Cowboys games was largely watched because the Cowboys are America's team and a national brand. Here's what I'll say, Greeny. The hardest thing in life for most men to do is admit you're wrong. And I think the NFL got it wrong here, but I don't know if there's anything they can do. I don't think the Chargers are going back to San Diego. Everything that happened with Dean Spanos and that stadium, and are you going to build them a new stadium, and the bluffing that went on there, I think it got to be too much. And quite frankly, the NFL basically said, you know what? we can go to L.A. and we can call your bluff. You don't want to build us a new stadium. You don't want the tax. We'll go to L.A. L.A. is a huge market. They want a new team. We can get a new stadium there. We're going to share with the Rams, and I think it's not going to work. And I think the hardest thing for the NFL to do, or any person, would be to say, you know what, we screwed this up. We're wrong. I don't think they're going to do that. And unfortunately, I think the Chargers and their fan base are going to suffer because when you have a 25 to 30,000 seat stadium and you can't sell it out, what does that say when you get a new stadium? What does that say when the opposing team has more fans in the stadium than you do? When the home team has to ponder going silent count when you're on offense. And that's what the Chargers almost had to do this past weekend. And so I think the Chargers have an issue. I don't know what they can do about it, but I do know it's a huge mistake having them there.
I don't disagree with you, but I do think you go then to the second part, which is what do you do about it? You have, as I see it, 3 options.
Okay.
One is you go back to, well, I guess 4 options if one of them is just leave it where it is and live with it. But if you're saying you want to actually consider making a change, there are 3 ways you could do it. You can go back to San Diego. You can go to another American market that doesn't have the NFL in it.
Where?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of traditional college markets. Like, I mean, the NBA is working in Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm 99% sure I'm right. It's a bigger market than Green Bay, Wisconsin is.
Right.
You could put a team there. Now, again, that's college football country. Right. But could you put a team in? I'm just making up a market like
no
that.
Doubt, no doubt.
Or you keep talking about wanting to put a team in London. I mean, is that the team that you put in London? Rather than starting a new team, which you do not need. You do not want to start a new team. The last thing in the world that league needs right now is expansion. If you really want to put a team in London, put the Chargers in London.
Of all the options you mentioned, I think the most viable option is to say, you know what, we got it wrong and go back to San Diego, which it would take a lot of people to bite their pride and to bite their tongue and do that. And unfortunately, I don't think there's enough humility amongst the owners, commissioner, and the people of power in San Diego, the politicians, to do that.
All right. We'll see what winds up happening there. But, again, nobody's showing up at the games and they're not even watching them on TV. The people are speaking as loudly as they can without saying a word. They don't really want the Chargers in Los Angeles.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Good morning, Louis Riddick.
Man, how are you?
We're well.
Big watch you got on, bro.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with Greeny. Greeny's got that nice.
I like a watch you can land a plane on. Okay, let's get into
helicopter pad.
A bunch of different stuff to get to this morning with you here, Louis, both on and off the football field. Let's start on.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs. Is it me or is Alex Smith? I heard what you were saying to Van Pelt last night. We played it a little bit earlier this morning. That sometimes he makes you a little frustrated because of his lack of willingness to sort of let it go. And part of that is managing the game, and part of it is, is what it is. But when big plays have needed to be made this season, he has made them both with his arm and with his legs. And right now, he is the difference to me in watching that team between being like everybody else and being unbeaten.
Yeah, look, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions, that'll win you a lot of games. 8.8 yards per attempt, that'll win you a lot of games. The guy right now is setting career highs as far as his completion percentage and his yards per attempt. And yards per attempt is the biggest one for me with him because there's a different Alex Smith that is showing up this year as far as how he is pushing the ball downfield. And I know we say that all the time, but he is pushing the ball down the field. And I don't know if that's because he sees Patrick Mahomes in practice take the ball and just sling it some, and whether Andy has kind of really got him to not be reckless with the football, but be more willing to push the ball down the field and take more chances because he's good enough to do it. I don't know what it is, but he's a different player this year. He's playing freer. He's trusting himself. He's trusting his ability to not just win with his legs and pick up first downs that way, but to win with his arm. And that pass last night, the one that you're seeing here play on a loop, when he rolled out to his right, that was his first pass he completed out of the pocket, I believe, all night long. And that's a pinpoint pass. That's a hard pass to make. There's only a few quarterbacks who can put that where he put that with consistency. And if he can continue to do that, Greeny, with the way Kareem Hunt is playing, which is no accident, because it's a perfect storm of this kid was undervalued coming out of Toledo. People didn't want to name and talk about him in the same breath that they were talking about guys like Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey. But the scouting staff down there in Kansas City was high on him from the get-go last January. The head coach is behind him. When they got that kind of combination, an unsung, underrated offensive line, pass rushers that can close out games when Dee Ford and Justin Houston are on the field together, this is a team that, look, they play complementary football at its finest. they're going to be there in the very end. They're going to be in there in the championship game unless something derails them from an injury standpoint. And a lot of that has to do with circling all the way back to how Alex is playing much different this year than he's played at any point in his career.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate. As a defensive guy, if I'm scouting this team and going against this team, here's what I say. Figure out a way to stack the box to take away Travis Kelce. Do they have enough weapons on the outside? If you take away Kelce, can Alex Smith and the wide receivers beat you?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the $1,000,000 question, Boog, is when they come down on Kelce and really just say, I don't care what. You're not going to beat us, and we're going to stack this box, and we're not going to let Kareem Hunt just go off on us over and over and over again. The guy who really comes into focus then is Tyreek Hill. Because the question before the season was, when you are really asked to be a number one, and I mean asked to be in November and December, when it's cold, that ball feels hard as a rock, and you need to pick up that first down on 3rd and 8, are you going to be the guy who's going to be able to run the route that allows Alex to keep drives going and win football games? That's going to be the deciding factor, no question about it. And I don't know the answer to that yet. I know that there are people down there who believe that Tyreek is not just a flash in the pan. He's not just a fast gadget guy that can hit you with big plays once in a while, that he is a legit wide receiver. And I know this. If you watch the Chiefs tape this year, Andy has more stuff in his arsenal than you can possibly imagine as far as getting people open. And the way he is being creative with Travis, with Tyreek, with Albert Wilson, with Kareem Hunt, they're going to be there.
Right, and to your point, Greeny, what he's talking about, and when you look at an offense, most traditional pro offenses, you think about the quarterback in the pocket, Andy Reid is basically saying, you know what, the college game isn't giving us a lot of pro-style setups from an offensive line standpoint nor a quarterback standpoint. So let's do what these guys do best. Let's bring some of the RPOs, the run-pass options. You see the Kansas City Chiefs, they're running a college offense basically. Now, he still has some pro concept, but if you look at what they're doing, they're running a college offense with a great tight end and a pretty good running back.
And they've got the quarterback sitting there waiting in the wings, Patrick Mahomes, who eventually will run it. We'll see when that day comes. Mike and Louis Riddick is here. We've put a lot of musical artists at the mics today, and that is brought to you by Dave & Buster's. Watch the games and play the games at your football headquarters. That's Dave & Buster's. All right, let's talk about some of the AFC contenders right now with the Chiefs off to this terrific start. One of them is New England, and we brought this stat up earlier today. Everyone's talking about their defense, and for good reason.
Yep.
Tom Brady has been sacked 13 times in 4 games this year. He was only sacked 15 times all of last season. He's on pace to be sacked 52 times. The man is 40 years old. I understand that he's Captain America, as Herman likes to call him. But what can they do to make sure he's not taking that kind of beating, or will he be able to stand up to it all season long?
Yeah, you know what? They'll figure out ways in order to vary their protections and be more precise as far as protection calls and making sure that they're keeping enough guys in to block if it becomes a situation where they just feel like they're outmanned from a one-on-one matchup perspective and they're getting them hit too much. And Tom, you will see, I'm sure, as the season goes on, he will pick up his pace and tempo as far as I'm getting the ball out. I just am. And we've said that every year. We've said every year about the Patriots, too. There's always some growing pains with this football team in September. And every year, if you listen to Bill talk in the offseason, he says this all the time to people. He tries to educate people on this all the time. And I need to remember it myself, that every year is different. I don't care if you bring back the same 53 guys. It always looks different. The chemistry's different. The timing's different. You cannot assume how the way that it ended last year against the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl was the way they were going to start out this year. And I think this team is a work in progress. Going over to the defensive side, and I know we've talked about this and many people have kind of like threw their opinions in here about this. The Patriots are not lacking in the secondary from a skill perspective.
No.
It is one of the most head-scratching things that, for me, in all the years I've been actually sitting here on TV and talking about why these guys can't get on the same page, considering how many veterans that they have and how long these guys have been, especially at safety with Bill.
Yep.
And I know how much he emphasizes communication from the signal callers. I know that signal callers, meaning Mike backers and safeties, have their own meetings in Bill's regime as far as making sure they know exactly what he wants and then practicing how they communicate it to the corners. To see them making some of the elementary mistakes that they are as far as handling stacks, bunches, crossers, it's mind-blowing to me. I've never seen it before, ever, as far from a Bill Belichick coach team. I think they'll get that figured out. I think this team will be okay once they get down the stretch.
Doesn't it make you think there's something else going on, though? Like, when you got veteran players.
I don't know what it could be. I really don't. Because these are vet guys. Look, Patrick has been there. Devin McCourty has been there. Duron Harmon has been there. They were all drafted there. So they know what he wants. I don't know what the communication issues are, But there's some heads will roll up there if they don't get it straightened out. Bill will not let that stay the way it is. I guarantee you that.
We opened the show with this conversation today. I said, if you're not going to give Bill the benefit of the doubt, who are you giving it to? In fact, I want to trademark this. I'm changing it to the benefit of the doubt. I believe he gets the benefit of the doubt.
As he should.
Because if he doesn't get it, nobody